Honestly, thank you. Thank you for clicking on the video and choosing to watch this. That itself means the world to me. The reason I chose to name this podcast Take That Leap with Jaitra is because the fact that I started YouTube and the fact that I started doing content was a big leap in itself for me. And I saw people around me who've taken far longer and larger leaps than I have. And I wanted to really understand what were they thinking about the risk and the courage that they had to take those chances to do what they truly believed in. And that's exactly what you're going to get from your first guest. Jamie Shaw is a 20-year-old motor racing driver from Mumbai who's trying his level best to make it to the highest stages in motor racing. I present to you Jamie Shaw in 3, 2, 1. Cool. Firstly, welcome to the podcast, Jamie. You're the first guest. I'm really grateful for that Instagram F1 group that Rahil created, because of which I got to know you. Uh, the point of doing all of this is purely to highlight people who've really shown the courage to take risk in their careers, and really make a mark for themselves in their own field. And I think that's the reason I thought you'd be extremely apt for doing something like this. So, welcome to the podcast, Jamie. How are you feeling?
So firstly, thank you, Jaitra, for having me here. I really appreciate it, and just very much looking forward to this podcast. We've been planning it for a while, so I'm doing good. We just finished the last round of the JK Tire Championship 2 days ago. So
Hmm.
yesterday was just uh, an off day, like an off day in the sense as keeping it cool, chilling, completing a little bit of pending work,
Hmm.
and if we do get racing again, then it's only going to be 2 weeks till we finally get back on track, which
Hmm.
is brilliant. I mean, I love racing, and I'm I've had a
Awesome.
budget issue for a while, so
Hmm.
if it works out, then that's brilliant. I'll be back on track.
Awesome. So, for all the listeners out there, can you just, so that they have context,
Right.
other than being the biggest stud in the other Parsi colony, what do you do for a living?
Okay, so apart from being a race driver, I work as a freelance videographer. I do this again to fund my career. I do this as a side hustle.
Hmm.
Doing my BCom alongside sports medicine right now.
Hmm.
And everything I do is it all filters down to motorsport, because at the end of the day, this is where I want to be. And
Hmm.
if I ever need to up people in my sport, or basically be the best there is, I got to do everything in practically every department,
Hmm.
whether it's education or whether it's something on track. So
Hmm.
that's what I've been up to. And we've got again, then it'll dive back into motorsport. When I say we've got the online courses that I'm running, that's going pretty good still
Hmm.
to like boom, I'd say. But just doing it because knowledge for people, like it's just not out there as much. We see Instagram videos and all, still
Hmm.
very much focused on Formula One, no grassroots level information, etc.
Hmm. Hmm.
So
Hmm.
that's what I've been focusing on, working on. Yeah.
Got it. So you mentioned you're doing courses. You conduct courses. You go to institutions and do talks. You're studying sports medicine at the side.
Right.
Like, have you surrounded yourself so much around motorsport? Do you have any other hobbies other than that, or is it just completely
Motorsport,
into motorsport?
I'll tell you. So, motorsport is not part of my life. My life is part of motorsport. So,
Okay.
absolutely every element in my life, the way I sleep, breathe, eat, talk,
Hmm.
is motorsport. That's
Got it.
just the way I've kept it. And that's the way I have, evolved things into to being this way.
Hmm.
Because that's the one way I see I will get every benefit out of being part of the sport. I'm very much well aware that I am far behind when it comes
Hmm.
to not only the age aspect but also the experience aspect. When you look at a driver and you see how many championships he's done, or the amount of time he gets to spend on a racetrack, those are crucial things, right? So I've ensured that, or at least I'm trying to ensure that every other department, whether it's brand building or whether it is fitness, I am trying my best to ace those departments, so that,
Hmm.
because there's no way I can control the other department, which is finance right now, or not no way, or I meant to say there's no real support that I have in that aspect right now.
Which
So
is fair.
every other thing, just trying to push all the way.
Which is fair. Was motor racing the first sport you ever watched or got into, or were like while growing up, which sport did you really were you really
Uh,
into?
so growing up, I was not ever into any sport. I
Hmm.
used to play football very rarely. I used to not follow it. I used to sing quite a bit, and I used to win competitions in singing. But the truth is that I was a really overweight kid. In fact, 4 years ago or something, I was heavily obese. I was probably 70 kilos, 5 feet tall,
Hmm.
no way fit to do anything really. A lot
Hmm.
of aches and pains all throughout,
Hmm.
and I faced a few battles growing up with myself, really. Fitness was the second one. The first was actually education, because I used to be a complete failure in school. So,
Hmm.
because of that aspect, I was not ever pushed towards sport from my family's end. I was always told, listen, you really need to focus on your studies and progress there first, which is what I am very grateful to them for. It's what disciplined me in many ways. I wouldn't get to do much, I'd say, apart from just study, and that really built me into who I am today. I was a very arrogant child. I used to do a lot of mischievous things. So the studying aspect and holding me back from doing anything, it made me unfit physically, and it also only made me inclined towards studies. But eventually I scored good marks in my 10th, and when I had no interest in anything
Hmm.
whatsoever, when motorsport was the interest of motorsport was building, that was around my ninth grade. So
God.
maybe 2016, 2017. It was not something that's part of my family. None of my family members are, like heavily engrossed into this sport.
God.
And it just so happened that this was something that I started to really create an interest for. And it
God.
was fortunate then that I was not part of any other sport. I was not still singing or doing any
Hmm.
of
Hmm.
those
Hmm.
things, because if I was, then maybe I wouldn't be so inclined to this. So
Fair.
again, just very grateful for the situation as a whole. Feel like things
God.
have like there have been points in my life which I didn't ever observe that was leading me up to these things. My mom used to be a fan of cars earlier. I had no idea. She used to play with toy cars as a kid. I had no idea. My dad had this one McLaren jacket in his cupboard from
Hmm.
some from a trip he had taken, and all these dots I felt were
Hmm.
leading up to something. I didn't ever see it at that time,
Fair.
but yeah, now we're here today.
You
So
said while growing up you were an arrogant kid, but in whatever conversations we've had till now, I sense a lot of humility from your end. Has
thank you.
racing done that to you?
I would say it's happened over time for many reasons. So I was a very arrogant kid. I was an absolute bully in my school. I was not. I wouldn't have been a friend with myself, in short.
Hmm.
And all of those things that I did obviously only affected me. I did affect a lot of people, and I in a way I can't change that too much. As
Hmm.
apologetic as I'd be,
Hmm.
you can't change that aspect. So the only thing was building myself into the best version of myself.
Fair.
And like you said, has racing done this to you? I would say, it's a lot of people say that, had you only started earlier, would you have been like, where would you have been today, with what you're basically doing today? I don't mean to show off, but
Hmm.
that's what they say, and my answer is no. I wouldn't have been anywhere, because I was a completely different person.
Fair.
There was no sense of understanding or empathy or being able to deal with the situation. It was just I was a completely different person. So
Fair.
being that person in school, really going from failing and not having a lot of friends because of just the person I was, to evolving, gave me, I would say, a gist of two sides to a lot
Hmm.
of different things growing
Hmm.
up.
Hmm.
So when I was 15 and I was in my 10th grade, and that's when I actually got into the sport. Had it have been any earlier than that, I don't think I would have had the mental capacity to have a drive in the first place
Hmm.
and to sustain that drive. Because
Hmm.
the things I deal with today, I know to myself that I'm dealing with them because of
Hmm.
who I am today, and not
Hmm.
because of who if I was that person, that would be no way. So,
Yeah.
like, I've coming back to the first aspect. Every single thing I do in my life, somehow, or at least I didn't see it initially, there were points leading up to this moment, and everything I do is for the benefit of my career in motorsport.
Awesome. So I agree with what you said, about the maturity that you gain after a certain age. I used to play a lot of cricket and football at the district level while
Okay.
growing up. But I didn't make the cut eventually because at that point of time I had no clue, like, about how mature I need to be, about how consistent I need to be. Where am I heading? Most of these things just end up being school hobbies because in India, the emphasis is mostly on education, right? So you don't take these things as a primary motive in life. But today, when you think of playing sport or football, or if, like, for example, football or cricket, you can always look back and feel like, I wish I knew this when I was 14 or when I was 13, so that I could really make that push. And I think only those very few special ones who really make that cut in competitive sports, like even F1, right? You start in at the international scene. People start karting at 3 or 4, so you really need to have some X factor at that age, or else you need to have some push externally. But from what I know, you are a self-trained driver, right?
Right.
How did you start motor racing? And after that, I really want to know what gives you the courage to pursue a dream like this in India, because over the years we've been a primarily one sport nation, right? Our cricket is
Hmm.
everything that people
Right.
think about in this country. Uh, where did motor racing come into this entire picture, and what got you into it specifically? We've understood that your parents were, there are those things that just panned out for you naturally, but where did Jamie Shaw actively start being a part of motor racing? That's what I want to know.
Right. There were a few major turning points, but just to make it clear again, I had no. So when you start off at the age of 4 and 5, you practically have no. There's no source of motivation. It's an
Hmm.
external push, like you said.
Exactly.
So, coming back to my point of being 15, in short, it was at that age that I was mentally able to in a way push myself. I would say there was just no there was nothing from the outside, simply because I have grown up in a family that's been very much interested in my grades, and how settled I am in life, because being part of any sport is very outlandish for us. It's just a no go.
What do your parents do, Jamie?
My father works. We own a hotel in Lavasa called the Waterfront Shore. So my father is a hotelier, and we also work in the software department of hotel industry as well.
God.
So my mom works as a club affiliate with Amanora Club in Pune,
Okay.
and my dad works in the hotel industry with my brother.
Hmm.
So there was just no connection to motorsport whatsoever. Biggest turning point for me was when I was 15. I attended a camp that was organized for Zoroastrians, people from my community, and in that camp we had a seminar to do with road safety. Now I was at the edge of my seat simply because it was now involving cars. Mind you, I have no science background. I have no understanding of cars, at least at that time, and it was just all about motorsport. It was just simply the ability to drive around a racetrack and whoop everyone, in
Hmm.
short.
Hmm.
So he spoke about road safety, and I was very eager. I was listening to what he was saying, and at the end of his seminar, he mentions that there was a racetrack that was going to be built in Wadala. Wadala is a 5-minute drive from my house in
Hmm.
Dadar.
Hmm.
So I was extremely excited to now know that there was a racetrack coming up. Of course,
Is this Ajmera?
yes, this is Ajmera. With basically the just the lack of space, resources available, it wasn't a racetrack or as of such. It was a a local level karting track
Yeah.
setup, but nonetheless it was something. And all my I would say for the last many years, or like for maybe 3 years, my 10th, ninth, 8th, I was only completely studying, because in my sixth grade I eventually failed my exams. So I came very close to repeating the year, and I had to really push. So by my after my sixth grade, I wouldn't have a summer vacation, because what would happen was I would start studying again the portion of the year that I've just completed, in case I do fail, in case I need to repeat the year. That was how like bad it was for me. And of course, it wasn't the easiest thing just coping and saying, okay, yeah, we need to do this. It was, I was like I couldn't do a lot more than just study. So
Hmm.
when I finished my 10th and I scored pretty good marks, I got a 94 in my ICSE. So it was enough to convince my parents to allow me to try something new.
Fair.
And the sport isn't cheap in any way. So
100%.
it was a 2 day training cost for around 20,000 rupees. And again, my family, like, thank God that we are, well settled, but that doesn't mean that we spend as much as this. So
Mm-hmm.
it was a task convincing my parents to allow me to do this. But once that got done, I just knew that, like, the way I was in the course, my ability to just grasp what was going on, it just felt so natural. And it was a want of mine, to just like squeeze every element and just get the most. Because even before I went for my course, I ensured I would learn every single thing about motorsport through YouTube and online, and then I went and I did my course.
Hmm.
It was like a revision for me.
God.
So that was the biggest turning point for me.
Hmm.
And actually, there's a little element that even led to this, which might have been an even bigger turning point, because it
Hmm.
wouldn't have led to this day, which was when I went to this track for the first time. The same speaker of that seminar, his name is Rustam Kaisi Patel. He's a biking champion in India. He was present at that track, and I knew he was there because I was seeing him watch me drive. I just didn't know why he was watching me. I just said, someone's watching me, that's all right,
Hmm.
I'm just gonna keep go karting.
Hmm.
And he approached me after my session. It was an 8 minute session, and he said, where have you trained? And I said, I haven't. I just watch the sport, I play a few video games. And he told me that you should seriously consider joining this sport. It's just meant for you. And yeah, that's how it took off.
Super awesome, man. Honestly, I don't know if you'll relate to this, but you know, even we come from a part of Mumbai which is very privileged, right? And you often see people with very low motivation once that sort of privilege comes in. But with you, it's constant. Like you're really hustling your way to make your mark in some place, and I really appreciate people like that because there are very few I see around me at this
Thank
point.
you.
uh, you spoke about funds multiple times, right? Because it's a very expensive sport. We know how tough it can get. How much does it really cost? I'm asking for an Indian driver. If today, uh, let's say, my kid is 5 years old or 6 years old, uh, how much would it really cost me to put my son in F1 one day? Like, where does where does that entire cycle start? How does it end? Like, I want to know the journey of anyone today who wants to be a motorsport uh, racing driver, or let's say Formula One, because that's the goal, right? For most people, it's the most popular sport, in the most popular within the motor racing sport. And how much would that cost ideally?
If you want a very direct answer, okay, so I can't give you a direct answer, but I just like to mention motorsport has no rules. It has guidelines.
Hmm.
You work as per guidelines. There is
Hmm.
no step one, step two. The
God.
step one can lead to step X, which will lead to step 74, which will lead to step Y. Like, there's no proper, there are no rules, there are guidelines. If you want a very straight, blunt answer, you'll spend about 300 crores or 400 crores, and maybe you can get yourself into Formula One. That's, I would like, from everything that I'm trying to calculate and think of right now, like, I'm assuming that much should get you into Formula One,
Hmm.
considering you're outright beating your competition. So
Hmm.
that would be a good amount to get you
Hmm.
to that place. Now, to make it a little less, why is anyone even part of this sport sort of vibe right now? It's very important to remember that motorsport is actually not this way. It's not a triangle that leads to Formula One. It's like this. It's an inverted triangle.
Hmm.
So just the way cricket is, when you start at any level, maybe in your school, college, move to district, move to state, move to national, move to IPL, move to World Cup, it goes this way,
Hmm. Hmm.
because
Hmm.
you're eliminating different levels that are at par with those levels, I would say. And you're also eliminating the number of people who are competing at those levels, because you're getting into a more niche category
Hmm.
altogether.
Hmm.
The way it is with motorsport is absolutely right. F1 is probably the pinnacle of this sport, simply because of how limited the seats are,
Hmm.
because of the budget, right?
Hmm.
With the teams, the budget the teams have, with how limited the seats become, 20 seats in the entire world makes this the most niche category.
Is it the toughest though, out of all?
That's a very good question, because there is a twist to this aspect of motorsport. You see, this is a category where you've got something which I would say is a 90-minute sprint. It's a
Hmm.
90-minute race. If you look at something like rally, where you've got maybe even a like, I'm assuming stints can go anywhere between 3 minutes to 11 minutes to 20 minutes of rally. It's a absolutely different style of driving altogether, which is a different demand from the driver. In rally, you've got a navigator sitting beside you who will address you to take one of six different types of left turns or one of six different types of right turns. And if you make any single error, then you're off a hill. So the the requirement is completely different. When you
Hmm.
look at endurance racing, for instance, where you've got
Hmm.
racing for 12 to 24 hours, even 8 hours, you've got to be like in a different mode. Because, for instance, if I'm telling you to go flat out every lap, but what if I tell you to go 80% every lap? How
Hmm.
do you control yourself to only go to 80%?
Percent.
So
Fair.
it's a completely different requirement altogether, which makes those categories, I would say, equally hard,
Hmm.
because it's a different requirement. It's like this. You can see cricket and compare IPL to World Cup. In motorsport, it's like you're in the Olympics, where you're
Hmm.
comparing swimming to badminton.
Hmm.
It's a
Hmm.
different sport. How do you get to compare these two individuals?
Hmm.
So the thing is that in motorsport, in this ladder, there are different elements, different places where you can be and grow as a race driver.
Fair.
Now, at every element of this of your career, you're either going to have to pay or you're going to get paid. To cut it short, getting paid very rare, of course, and paying is as it's always been. Even at Formula One level, you'll see drivers who are getting their seats because of their financial backing.
Correct.
So it comes
Have
down.
Have you gotten paid till now for
No, I
while racing?
haven't gotten
You've
paid.
not made a
To
single buck
Oh no,
racing.
I have made money, but that's through prize money. But
Oh God.
your prize money it might cover at max 1/4 of your expenses for that season alone.
Hmm.
Con- Just and also it's important to remember, to get to that season, the amount of money you've had to spend before that to be competitive in the season.
Hmm.
That's also something to consider.
Hmm.
And just touching upon the triangle, actually, I wouldn't say it's accurate in any way that you need to reach Formula One. It's your dream. That's a dream. But there are levels of motorsport. For instance, DTM, NASCAR. You've got, let's say, you've got LMP2 in the WEC. You've got the
Le
highest
Mans.
category LMH, but you've also got LMP2. Just because it's a step below doesn't mean it's not a viable career option where you
Fair.
can be in race for a long duration of your life. So
Hmm.
it's the thing that lacks in India mainly is awareness, right?
Hmm.
Understanding of the sport, which means that when this builds, I feel like more people will understand that there are different levels where you can be in motorsport and actually live and sustain your life.
Fair.
Yeah.
How much money can one make on an average? I'm talking about median money one can make when you're, let's say, not an F1 driver, but you're a NASCAR driver or the other races you mentioned. How much money can you make?
The stupidest person in the pit lane is the race driver, because he's the only one who's paying to do his job. Everyone else gets paid. So
Hmm.
it's incredibly rare to get a pay. If you're asking me how much can one get a pay, maybe if you do like a premier championship of any country, you might get. I'm just trying to think, because usually what they'll do is, if you're an invite driver, they'll provide you with a free drive.
Hmm.
You've got to be an absolute legend to be getting paid, and maybe in a premier racing championship you'll make about £15,000 a
Hmm.
weekend.
Hmm.
But
Hmm.
this is considering you're like an absolute legend. So it's not a lot that you really make earning as a race driver. But to be very clear, I would say, as an individual who's trying to grow in the sport, if your question is, then what are you doing here if you can't sustain your life? In short, what is the point of this journey when you're already suffering with funds and it's only going to get more and more expensive as you progress? What's the point?
Hmm.
Now the thing is that as a race driver, it's very capital intensive. when you're having to spend a lot for your assets, in short, like your race car, in short. You don't have to buy it, but you're ultimately paying to use it. You get a lot of free time in your hands. It's not as time intensive. As much as you'd want to practice, how much would you practice? If a season is 5 weeks
Hmm.
and you, let's say, practice for as much time, or let's say you practice for double that amount of time, that's 15 weeks. The rest of the time is yours. So I, as an individual, for instance, in order to maximize my chance to grow and also to be a better driver at the level I'm at right now,
Hmm.
I do absolutely everything I can with the rest of my time. For
Hmm.
instance, growing myself as a brand is very important in this sport. Doing things that others are not is one, and doing things better than they are is two. So
Hmm.
my fitness, building myself as a brand, understanding the technical aspect of a car is not something every race driver even knows. So all these different elements, I spend time doing it simply because I don't want to race at this level. I'm not considering myself to be at this level, although I am currently competing in this category. I am genuinely trying to
Hmm.
be at par with those guys. So the
Hmm.
day I get there, if I ever get there, and hopefully I do, the amount of time that I've only been spending, like being in those levels of situations when it comes to fitness, for instance, by the time I'm there, then we can maybe see who's better off. In short.
you you think like a champion, right? You really want to be prepared when you get there. You don't want to leave one stone unturned when you're there, right?
My whole career has only been about coping because it's a simple example. When I started karting, I was very sure that I was not going to be borrowing this much money from my family. I was certain of that, and I
Hmm.
was also certain that it is something that my family would do. They would say yes, but
Hmm.
they wouldn't say just take it, it's okay, like it's
Hmm.
fine. And I understand that my family also, thank God that we are, were settled in life, but we do face our own financial burdens and problems, and I no way intend on ever adding to that. And I was very certain and clear with
Fair.
myself that if you want to do this, you better do something. Okay.
Hmm.
So I the same racetrack where I did my course, I started working there. So I would work as a social media. I was an intern because I was only 16. I couldn't be called an employee, but I
Hmm.
used to do everything. I used to manage everything from their marketing, sales, their in-person sales, their calling, their data logging, their sponsorship deals, whatsoever you name it. And I did it from Jan to December,
Hmm.
so an entire year, in short.
Fair.
And I would do everything. I would even spend most of my free time cleaning their go-karts because it would allow me to get a hand on what I was driving. And what that would do would give me 30 minutes of karting time per week.
Hmm.
That was my, in short, like my
Hmm.
pay, you can say.
Hmm.
And that's the only practice I got. I didn't spend a single rupee apart from that. I was still looking at,
Hmm.
now, okay, I'm spending this, okay, I'm spending on my travel, I'm spending on my food. How do I cut this down, do that? I can do this, I can work here, I can work there. So when I came to my championship, it was called the Pro Senior National Series. It was held at that track, and I was driving against some serious competition. We had Asian karting drivers, national champions. We had Formula 4 drivers who were there. It was a packed grid.
Hmm.
The only practice that I was getting was 30 minutes a week on a much slower kart. And whilst they had their own professional go karts, they had a device called a micron, which literally pinpoints where you're losing time on a track. These are things I can't go by. I go by
Hmm.
sound, I go by sight. So you just build and you keep coping. And that element of coping is,
Hmm.
I would say, which was the
Hmm.
most important. Even today, if I look at my championships, the last round we did in the JK tire, I hadn't stepped foot on that track in that car
Hmm.
either. We had to practice for a good 100 laps, but unfortunately, due to
Hmm.
situation, it got cut to 12 laps.
Hmm.
It was just ability to cope. We still qualified 14th out of
Hmm.
27
Hmm.
guys who, like, mad, mad experience compared to me in those cars, those track or that
Got it.
track. So it's all just come down to ability to cope. And
Hmm.
I'm very well aware that when I say I'm coping and I'm scraping through, I'm very well aware that I'm still very fortunate. I'm living my dream. I have no complaints. And I'm sure, like, there are a lot more people out there who don't even have these opportunities. So if I don't make the most of it, then I'm a waste of an opportunity. That's the way I see it. That's what pushes me even more to,
Hmm.
maximize, in short.
Even Max Verstappen till date, most of his practice sessions are just he understands the track by just feel and not by data. So uh,
Nice
that
to know.
that's something similar. When you mention funds, how much does it cost you to have the season of your dreams?
Okay, so currently in India, there is a premier Formula Racing Championship called the MRF 2000s. A budget for that would approximately be 30 to 35 lakhs for the season, which is, if I'm not mistaken, 3 race weekends or 4 race weekends. Probably 4 race weekends, yeah, 4 race weekends. But this excludes, I would say, uh, a lot of different elements. For instance, I don't live right near the track. My travel is included. My travel is excluded. My stay is excluded. My fitness regimes to I don't intend on being a driver who's fit enough for that. I want to be a driver who's fit enough to really be at a higher level.
Hmm.
Just again, so that the day when
Hmm.
I reach there, it's been years since I've already been preparing for that day.
Hmm.
So you can spend an easy cool 30-35 lakhs for that season. Yeah.
Hmm. Do you take any money from your parents to fund this dream at all?
Yes, I wouldn't ever say that my parents have not supported me. I mean, my mom is my biggest fan, and my dad has been my only, or not my only, but one of the largest supporters when it comes to finance. And I'm very grateful again that, my parents, they'll definitely let me know their opinions on situations and decisions that I need to make. They'll
Hmm.
give me freedom to make the decision. That's one.
Hmm.
And two, if I make a decision that is not as per their advice, they don't just back off and allow me to go on with it on my own. They'll
Awesome.
be there supporting me, and they'll really give me as much guidance as possible in the situation that I've now chosen to be in.
Hmm.
So again, like, it's an element that's very important. It used to not be that way earlier. It was a world apart from what it is today. But it has come with time, because I think even my parents have really seen and noticed that it's going to be a task, in short. But I
Hmm.
am genuinely pushing to my limit and more, I would say. So that's what it's turned things to. So yeah.
Which is incredible. Do you know Jehan? Are you friends with him?
Jian is a good friend of mine, I'd say. We've grown up in like the same area. I used to feel very intimidated by him, very honestly. I've grown to, be calm around him, and of course it's because of him that I have even become a little more calm. He's a person who is, to himself, I'd say. He's got
Hmm.
his group, his circle,
Hmm.
and he enjoys, that atmosphere.
Hmm.
So it's not the easiest to break a conversation with him. But as soon as you're calm, he's calm, and everything is fine. He's given me a lot of support, a lot of help, a lot of advice. And overall, I again, like I said, I'm scraping through with things here and there, but I'm very much aware that there are opportunities that I have,
Hmm.
not a lot of others do.
Hmm.
So very important for me to maximize in every aspect.
It's true. How good was Jehan? Like,
In the
how
sense,
good was he that he made it to F2? Like,
it's I would say you have to consider the fact that he started off in India at the age of 9, which is very late to be, still battling to be part of Formula One. I think it's clear that he's part of Formula E now, but it's very important to look at this aspect, simply because there are no facilities in India that you can compare to any foreign country that's into motorsport.
hmm.
It's out of comparison.
Hmm.
So to think that he used to first compete in India for probably about 3 years of his life, then he moved abroad, I would say that would mean that he could have he would ideally start competing really hard maybe by the time he was 12, which is again super super late.
Hmm.
So to still go from reaching abroad when you have such less resources in India. If you look abroad in karting championships, the top 28 or 29 will be within 1 second of each other.
Yeah.
If you look at India in karting championships, you might find the top five split between a second. So it's
Hmm.
just a world apart when it comes
Hmm.
to competition, even resources available. For instance, the kart that you drive, the support that you have from the technical side, how professional things are,
Hmm.
how much things work in your favor or against you. These are all aspects that come into play. So to think about the fact that he started in India, he went abroad, probably started, competing heavy by the time he was 11 or so, and still made such a big impact. That's insane. That's what I
Hmm.
feel people miss out,
Hmm.
because there's an element that comes into play, which is finance, right? You need the
Hmm.
finance to grow.
Hmm.
So it's only ever seemed like, oh, he's had the money, but the truth is that you need the money. There's no he has the
Yeah.
money.
Yeah.
If you want to reach those levels, you need the money. There's no question about it. So that
Hmm.
aspect or element, I would say, needs to get, erased or not looked at by people all the time. It's
Hmm.
just an element, or it's just a hurdle of the sport you need. For instance, if you're in a sport, you need to be super super tall. It's just an element that needs to be there. If you're not, then let's say you don't succeed.
Hmm.
That's It's just a hurdle that has to be
Exactly.
faced.
You were just not meant for it then, if that's.
You can say so, yeah. So it's just a hurdle or an element that
Hmm.
every single person faces, and every single
Fair.
person needs that backing for. Whether it's your
I,
money, sponsors,
I
that's
agree. In fact, only yesterday when I was researching more about Jehan, I understood his father is an MD at one of the Shaparji Palanji companies, the associate companies, and is that where the sponsorship also comes in from? Then Shaparji Palanji and
I
the stuff.
wouldn't know entirely. All I know is that he does come from a well-off family. So, like I'm saying, you need the funds to sustain yourself. And fortunately for him, he's had the backing
Hmm.
and the requirement. His family is also very supportive of his career, and those are elements you need.
Hmm.
I would say, yeah.
Correct. From the outside, it always seems like Parsis are there for other Parsis, and especially because there are so many industrialists and so many well-off people in the Parsi community, you'd always feel that there is support coming from somewhere. Do you think that's true? Do you see a lot of influenced Parsis offering help?
I would definitely agree with that. My community has given me a very big push. Even where I completely understand at times that there are people who just, they are they are struggling themselves, in short. So it's not like if he's not funding me, then he's not liking me or he's not in favor of me. There's nothing like that.
Hmm.
So there are a lot of people who have helped me even financially, and there are many people in my community, I'd say, who've really helped support push me in various aspects, whether it is providing me with connects or like I have a little bit of a saying, because back in 2020, I I knew things are going to be difficult, so what can I do next? So I just looked at my call log and I called every single person that was in my call logs, saying, listen, this is what I'm doing, this is who I am. Is there any person you can connect me to? Is there any sort of assistance help you can give me? So my simple logic is, whoever you speak to, you don't ever know. You can even speak to a barber, and that guy's top customer might be a race
Hmm.
driver or
Hmm.
someone who's influential and who can help me. So every single person, you won't ever know who can help you out. But to be very
Fair.
clear, my community has shown me a great amount of support, whether it's come to publicity connects or just encouragement. it's
Hmm.
it's brilliant. So I'm very grateful for that
Hmm.
aspect, yeah.
Hmm. When do you think it's in near sight that you'll have the immediate funds to put you, probably you'd want to move out of India to race more abroad, right? That's ideally your wish. So when do you think that happens?
When do I think that happens is as soon as I would get funds, in short. So there's a glass barrier between motorsport in India and abroad, and it's unfortunate, but that is the situation,
Hmm.
which means that I need to move abroad.
Hmm.
And I personally feel like I'm very much fit to drive internationally. That's where I
Hmm.
want to be. That's where I
Hmm.
want to progress. That's where I should be. That's the
Hmm.
way I see it.
Hmm.
So, one department in which I lack, it's not like when I say I lack in this department, it's just there's nothing I can do about it, and oh, so that's the end. Otherwise I would have just left the sport 4 years ago when I started it.
Hmm.
So that is an aspect that is all down to me again, right? It's a hurdle
Hmm.
that everyone faces. I'm not the only one.
Hmm.
So it's up to me to get that, to get past that hurdle.
Hmm.
And I look forward to going abroad to race as soon as I possibly can,
Fair.
because like I said, everything there is different. The way you build is different,
Hmm.
and it's just a whole different atmosphere. The resources you have, whether it's the cars or the teams or the tracks, everything is very much professional.
Hmm.
It's just a completely different aspect. We make the most of things in
Hmm.
India, but it's insufficient to progress, I would
Hmm.
say, unfortunately.
Hmm. My last question, based on the entire aspect of motor racing for you per se, is it's a tough sport. There's very less coverage in India. Getting paid is a challenge. Uh, you don't have the right resources as well.
Right.
What is motivating you to put yourself in this place?
Okay. This is it, motorsport is not part of my life. My life is part of motorsport. That's the way I see it. Every single element, every single aspect I do, it's just motorsport.
Hmm.
What is motivating me, it's undescribable, because you need to be what is it, I would say in Hindi, thoda hatke se, you need to have that element, or there are
100%.
just enough reasons for you to quit. There are absolutely enough reasons. it's it's just undescribable, the way I see it, and the way I see myself growing with the vision I have. Of course things need to play out, and if they don't, then I do those things, or I die trying to do those things. That's just the way I see it.
Awesome.
And I really hope to change things, because in short, when I speak about motorsport, I know the hurdles that I face, the battles that I face, and I know how much of a challenge it is to be part of this sport when it's such a niche industry. No
Hmm.
coverage, no proper scholarships, nothing, not even considered as a sport. My college won't provide me with leave for my exams because this is not counted as a sport by Mumbai University. All these are problems that are today, and the reason why I do my seminars, why I have my Instagram, why I have my online courses, is so that absolutely
Hmm.
nobody else faces the same problems, hurdles that I did. So anyone and everyone who, if you're even are seeing this and you all are interested in joining the sport, I am always right here to answer, help, and support. Because like I said, I made so many mistakes. Of course
Hmm.
it would have been nice to have a coach, and it would have been nice to have a mentor,
Hmm.
but would have, could have, should have,
Hmm.
it just doesn't change
Hmm.
me.
Hmm.
So I am now just looking at it from a point of view or a perspective of who else is going to be dealing with these same things, and I want to
Hmm.
ensure if they do face these things, they know how to do things in a
Yeah.
better way than I did. And the best situation would be they don't face these things. So
Correct.
pushing in seminars, pushing in colleges, universities for these educational seminars, I hope it makes a change. I'm seeing the changes making. I'm seeing the want of people to learn, which is something I'm so grateful for. I'm grateful for even Drive to Survive in a way, because it's created a want of ye kya hai, what is this sport. So
There's a sense of elitism for people who started watching F1 before Drive to Survive, right? There's a constant mocking towards DTS kids. Uh,
the problem with that serial, I would say, the brilliant thing they did was they gave exposure to of motorsport to people. The problem is, earlier people were unaware. Now people are aware of the wrong things,
hmm.
which is worse.
Hmm.
So you've got unaware people who have no idea, and then you've got people who've learned things
Hmm.
which are not, I would say, accurate.
Hmm.
So I would say, just even today when I look at Instagram, I'm glad that there are people who have tons and tons of followers who post brilliant information. But when I see it as a person who knows those things inside out, to be
Hmm.
very honest,
Hmm.
there are elements that I'm really not a fan of, that
Hmm.
are being mentioned or that are not accurate, to be
Like.
short. For instance, the way motorsport is in India, or how simple it could be to progress, or all you need to do is XYZ, it's just not that way. So that is misinformation. That is
Hmm.
encouraging people to try something that they're going to have a huge or serious problem in. That is not the
Agreed.
way to go ahead. So I mean, everything that I am trying right now, my Instagram is
Hmm.
minuscule compared to theirs.
Hmm.
So I'm only hoping that they also either change their way of speaking or mentioning things, simply because it's creating
Hmm.
a little bit of a negative effect. When I say that people are now aware of things that are not even accurate, it's more difficult to unlearn than it is to learn, because
Fair.
they've learned something that's not accurate. They're going to have that stuck in their head.
Fair.
Every aspect of this
Fair.
sport, I'd say, whether it's being a race driver and how the format of motorsport can be, and F1 is the top and that's the only place to be, and all these things need to change. Thought process needs to change.
100%.
That's all.
100%. For an earlier thing that you said, this might help you. Someone actually once told me that if you manage to put 3,000 hours, or I guess 3,000 or 5,000 hours into one thing, uh, you are 90% more. You're in a place that where you're 90% more probable to succeed at what you're doing. So, since your life is in motorsport, I have no doubts you're going to make something out of it.
Thank you.
Coming to F1 now, because a lot of viewers would want to actually understand your views on F1. What do you think of this, of F1 currently in India, and how people are perceiving it now?
The way motorsport is in India, I've been a part of the sport since 2018, and this is the most lively things I've ever been for my sport. So I
Hmm.
am ever grateful for this
Hmm.
atmosphere. I am ever grateful to know that there are people who, like, out of nowhere, a conversation will strike up about F1, and it can go on,
Hmm.
and I don't ever expect everyone to know every single element or aspect of the sport very clearly. As a fan, you get 10% information, or we get 10% information, 1% is knowledge, and there's 99% of every situation in this sport that we have no clue about. So
Hmm.
it is a little bit of an annoyance when
Hmm.
I would say everything is spoken about as if we have 100% information. It's
Yeah.
just so not
Yeah.
the way it is.
Fair.
So that's an element that's just going to be there, and
Hmm.
with time that will change too, because the only thing the sport has been doing is growing. We're seeing Red Bull
Yeah.
give us a really good opportunity of now, seeing a Formula One car at least in Mumbai in March next year, and we're going to be seeing a lot more racing related
Hmm.
things going on, simply because that fire is slowly building.
Yeah.
It's just something I'm grateful for. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. I think where DTS has helped is because Formula One as a sport is so as a thing to watch itself is so complex. If you watch one race by itself, you won't understand what's going on in a lot of places. Uh, I guess the first season was good because it helped people understand the sport, at least to understand what things are, basic things like pit stop strategies and stuff like that. A lot of people didn't understand it until you really looked into it deeply, or you had a friend to explain it to you. I was fortunate; I had a friend to explain it to me, hence I got into it before DTS. But I think that's most people I know started watching, and it helps people like you as well, right? The more eyeballs that come towards a certain sport, the more money flows into it. That's how the economy works as well. So I think that's where we can be grateful for DTS. Other than that, who's your favorite driver and which is your favorite team?
My all-time favorite driver is Fernando Alonso. My favorite team is Ferrari.
Ferrari. That's that's a sad story, but what do you think? What went wrong? What went so wrong with that team?
Again, we have 1% knowledge. So for me to be commenting on what a team that has or used to have a budget of $600 million in 2018 did wrong is it's I'm a couch potato, in short.
Hmm.
If you're
Hmm.
asking me in simple words, I can only say from what I see, which is there were
Hmm.
different aspects that were wrong. Sometimes it was luck, sometimes it was engine issues, but we just won't ever
Hmm.
know things. Even in, like, the simplest thing to understand is results will be inked down, and everything else is just thin in the air.
Hmm.
So it's just dust in the air, in short.
Fair.
So you've got someone leading the race, the entire race, and then in the last lap he's had an engine issue and DNF. It'll
Yeah.
just be written, this person XYZ DNF did not finish.
Correct.
That's just how any sport, every
Hmm.
sport is. So I see people constantly going by results. Seven-time national champ, seven-time in world champion.
Champion.
Sorry, you've got Max, who's now a
Two
two-time
time.
world champion. You've got Alonso, who's only a two-time world champion only. But there are just so many different aspects that you need to look at. So
Hmm.
I feel like being part of motorsport made me less of a fan of drivers and more of a fan of the sport itself,
Hmm.
because you just put yourself, or try putting yourself in situation for each driver, each team, every aspect of things. You put yourself in that situation, whether it's at karting or whether it's in Formula One. So for a very long duration in between, I wasn't a fan of anybody. It was this year that I said, I'm really rooting for Ferrari. I really want them to win. And Leclerc is someone who I would genuinely want to see, be up there.
Hmm.
So it's that's just the way I see the sport. Yeah.
Do you expect a Max Verstappen domination for the years to come, or do you think Leclerc is as good or better?
I see Red Bull dominating minimum until 2024. So the next 2 years I see are in Red Bull's hands and Max's hands, to be very
Despite the cost cap and no
yeah,
time in
yeah,
the
yeah.
wind
I
tunnel?
don't see much of a difference in that. I don't know how that's going to affect them too much, but I just feel like this is going to be fixed. Next 2 years, it's just going to be Red Bull dominance. I have a very strong feeling about that. In fact,
Hmm.
I feel like it's only going to get better because,
Hmm.
in my opinion, if De Vries does good this coming year,
Hmm.
he's going to get Perez's seat and Perez is out. It's important to remember that if we look at Bottas and Hamilton, in my opinion, Bottas was a world champion driver, like that
Hmm.
material.
Hmm.
And he made a step from Williams to Mercedes in 2017 without having an idea about it, only because Nico left all of a
Yeah.
sudden.
Yeah.
So he took up the role, and with what, like, confidence, I would say,
For sure.
So he was a champion driver who acted as a net for Lewis Hamilton, who went on to, bank in those championships.
100%.
Now, if we look at Perez and Max, Perez is not, in my opinion, anyway a champion driver. He's a very consistent, very good driver who is only a net. He's not a champion made into a net. So Red Bull wants a champion made into a net, and that driver is Nick De Vries. So
Hmm.
when Nick gets his chance this coming year and he annihilates Yuki Tsunoda, which is, in
Hmm.
my opinion, what is going to happen, then he's going to step up to Red Bull,
Hmm.
and God knows what's going to happen about
Hmm.
Yuki. But in my opinion, Perez is surely going to move
Hmm.
out in
Hmm.
2024, considering
Hmm.
Nick does a really good job. It should be the
Hmm.
case because
Hmm.
in many situations, actually, if you look at just data reports, you'll see Perez going slower than Pierre and Sonoda, which is surprising.
Yeah. Yeah.
So yeah.
Fair. I actually started watching Formula One in 2019,
Okay.
and I've been a Max Verstappen fan ever since. I've been a Red Bull fan.
Awesome.
What do
Nice.
you think of that guy? A lot of people, say there's no heart to him. It's just which is fine. I mean, he's a sport. Whatever he wants to achieve in the sport is up to him, and how he wants to achieve it is up to him. But do you see the beginning of greatness in Max Verstappen, or do you think he's had two good seasons like Alonso and might fizzle out later?
I don't need to say that I've seen the beginning of greatness. I think he's made it very clear. If he's winning championships, then that's as simple as it gets.
Hmm.
I don't get two things. I don't get when people say he's being mean or he's not being nice. I
Hmm.
just don't understand that aspect. It's the same thing with Alonso. Dude, like I just don't understand that aspect very
Hmm.
honestly, because
Hmm.
it's a different mentality, and
Yeah.
it's not only about your mentality, it's about mental games.
Hmm.
That's modus. It's a sport, dude. You can't you It's not about being nice guys finish
Yeah.
last, so it's not about that aspect. So I just let I don't really comment
Yeah.
much
Yeah.
when people say things like this.
Yeah.
I just let it slide. So that's one thing, and the second thing is every single team, maybe I can look back till at least 1998, so 24 years, okay?
Hmm.
And I can't name a single time where the top team with the top driver has not won the championship. You
Hmm.
require that.
Hmm.
And in short, you need to have a team that backs you, not both the drivers.
Correct.
If you're backing both the drivers, there's going to be a little bit of a problem. We saw that
100%.
with Hamilton and Alonso in 2007 when they lost the championship by 1 point to Kimi. We saw how difficult things were getting for Mercedes in 2016.
Yeah.
So it's very obvious and very clear that you need a team who backs one
Hmm.
driver and who absolutely pushes that guy.
Hmm. Hmm.
So
Hmm.
I don't again understand the aspect of, they should help both the drivers and all. It's just not the way the sport
What
works.
works?
It's
Fair.
it'll be unfortunate as hell for you to be the second driver. Like, look at Bottas, right? I'm pretty sure he struggled a lot mentally, and the
Yeah.
pressures that he faced, just knowing that he's not gonna get that chance, or when
Yeah.
he does, they might just take it away from him.
Yeah.
You know,
Fair. Fair.
it's just part of the sport. That's the way the
Fair.
sport works. It's not. It doesn't seem so nice. Like,
Fair.
no.
Fair. Ever been a fan of Lewis Hamilton?
I would say I wasn't a mad fan of any driver apart from Alonso, because I'm not a fan of Alonso because of his Formula One merits. I am The simple thing that makes me a fan of Alonso and makes me feel like he's the best driver the world has seen till date is simply because the man has done rally, endurance, and Formula One, which are the top three
Correct.
forms of motorsport worldwide, and he's done them the same year.
Hmm.
So I would say that, like, that's just unbeatable. If you have that ability. And the thing is that he wasn't just doing it for fun. He was winning. He was
Yeah,
dominating
for sure,
all of them.
for sure,
That just makes him the top
for
driver.
sure, for sure. Where do you see motorsport in India by 2030, 35?
2035 is a good time, I'd say. Maybe 10 years from today, we'll see hopefully 5 racetracks come up.
Hmm.
If we see 5 racetracks come up, then I think we're going into a good direction,
Hmm.
because uh, I would hope next that race cars are also built. So, Indian motorsport today, for instance, uses cars that are 12 to 15 years old. A race car's life is 2 years. So that's, when people mention Indian motorsport is the cheapest in the world, and it's brilliant
Hmm.
that this is how it is and it's so cheap. Dude, it is so cheap because have you seen the resources that are being used, in short?
Fair.
So, we need to take into consideration that that aspect needs to grow
Hmm.
as well.
Hmm.
And that'll only come when there's more support from practically the government. Like,
Hmm.
it's a sport that's too huge and heavy on funds to be built by an individual. You need support, so that support needs to be shown. So
Hmm.
if we see more and more racetracks come up, we might see more and more companies get involved. I don't expect the government to do
Hmm.
much, to be honest,
Hmm.
but we'll see more companies get involved. So when the
Fair.
companies get involved, then they might be doing what the government should be doing, in
Yeah.
my opinion.
Yeah.
And to make it very clear, we are part of a country that's dealing with a lot of more problems than
Yeah.
having one sport grow.
Yeah. For sure.
So, like, nothing really hard on them to not support our sport. But at
Fair.
the end of the day, I am going to be selfish and I am going to want my
You should.
sport to grow.
You should, for
Yeah.
sure. Cool. How much money do you think you can make out of motorsport in India today? Let's say, like, any aspect as a driver or anything. How much money could you be making in a year?
If you say any aspect, then that's a very difficult thing to answer, because as a driver, I don't think you make too much money. You'll be getting free drives in India.
Hmm.
That's what will happening. You'll be getting free drives, and you might be winning prize money, which is probably 1/4 of your actual cost.
Cost.
Which means, let's say you're spending 1 lakh. It's a ridiculously low rate, which is just for an example. You might not spend that 1 lakh, and you'll get 25K in your pocket.
Hmm.
So
Fair.
that's the way I see it. But if you look at teams, the margins for teams in India compared to abroad are huge. So,
Hmm.
for instance, if we spend 1 lakh per round, the margin that the team actually earns is enormous. Like,
Hmm.
they'll be making maybe 75%, and only 20%, 25% will be their cost.
Hmm.
That's a huge margin. If you go
Fair.
abroad, you will not see that same margin. You'll be charged a higher amount, and they'll be making a smaller
Fair.
amount for sure,
Fair.
simply because there is so much more competition out there. There are so many more series out there that people can opt for. There
Hmm.
are options, in short.
Hmm. Hmm.
So
Hmm.
when you have options, unlike you do in India, the people who provide those options earn less. So
Hmm.
in India, when there are no options or barely any options, and you've got the chance to basically supply, you can just earn a huge margin. So as a team in India, you can earn good
Yeah.
money, I'd say. So it's the same thing even with a driver coach. In India, the issue is that the knowledge is so limited
Hmm.
that the people who exist to provide you with that knowledge can very honestly charge you a very high rate for that.
Demand supply. Yeah.
Now the thing is that it is only fair because it is business at the end of the day. I, as a person, am going to try and ensure my best that there are people out there who get the knowledge. That's what
Fair.
I'm going to do. So I'm fine if they're doing their business, but my aim as a race driver is to support my community of race drivers to ensure that nobody faces the same problems that I did, which
Fair.
is the whole concept, which is the whole point of my online courses. And like,
Superb.
if I just see an interest in a person who's sent me a text on Instagram, the next
Hmm.
thing I say is, here's my number, you give me a call.
Fair.
If that
Fair.
dude gives me a call, then I speak for hours. If he doesn't, then sorry, but it's your loss.
Yeah,
That's the way
I'm
I
going to
see it.
link all your courses in the description, and people whoever interested can go and watch it. You mentioned tracks. I really want to know what happened to the Budh International Circuit. Why is it inoperational? And after especially that glory moment from Sebastian Vettel, where people who know nothing about F1 just went crazy about Sebastian Vettel for that entire period of time. What's happening there? In the middle, I heard there are some truck races happening there or something of that sort.
So the Budh is actually, uh, it was shot in between. the simple answer why Formula One didn't go on there was because of tax issues by the government. That's the simple answer to give you. So the government considered the sport as an entertainment, and the entertainment tax was an exorbitant amount that was apparently to be paid by Formula One. Just so
Okay.
you know, if I'm not mistaken, Formula One gets paid by racetracks to host races at their tracks at times. So, in short, it was not making sense for F1, so they pulled
Fair.
out of India. That's just the way it is.
Fair.
And if you look at the circuit itself, they closed off, and earlier before that they were open to smaller events, like for instance autocross, and like gatherings, meets. For instance, if you were a posh customer, then the
Yeah.
track would be booked and only posh customers would
Yeah.
go. So that used to happen. Then it shut down completely. They locked up, they sealed the track, then they opened it again, and now the same thing is happening. Now more and more people are visiting and going out for their meets, which is usually what the track is borrowed, or I'd say rented for.
Fair.
And you see a lot of gymkhana autocross races, but again, exorbitant rates to
Such
participate.
a waste of resources, but like you
So
created that and
right. So it was a combination of actually no interest from the people as well, because the major problem of the track was they earned through sales of tickets, and there were just like it was empty. I think for the third race, like I think it was some 30%
occupied.
like tickets or something. So
Yeah.
it was a huge problem because people didn't attend it.
Cool.
That was also a problem
Cool.
for them.
Cool. Now we're just heading to the last part. I'm gonna ask you a quick. It's gonna be a quick rapid fire, just few quick questions. Go away with it as you wish.
Sure.
What's your favorite track on the calendar and why?
Silverstone, driver, just the way it flows.
Senna or Shumi?
Senna.
Would you take ₹1 crore today and in return give up motor racing forever?
No.
Verstappen or Leclerc?
Leclerc.
George or Lewis?
Lewis.
Horner or Toto?
Toto.
One day with Michael Schumacher or lifelong guaranteed supply of funds today?
Lifelong guarantee of supplied funds today.
Awesome. Cool, Jamie Shaw. That's all I have to ask you. You've given me a beautiful podcast. You've really set the benchmark really high for all of these podcasts now with the first one. I really appreciate you coming in again, and I wish you all the best. I know you're going to make it big in life, and that's when I'm going to cash in on my second podcast with you when you're really big and competing for world-class championships.
Thank you very much.
Thanks a lot, buddy.
Thank you for having me.